Hello children, I am Mushkeen, your English teacher, and I welcome all of you to this session. Children, I would like to begin with the quote of William Shakespeare. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrusted upon them. Children, some are born great. Same as Anne Frank. Children, I'm sure you will be aware of the name Anne Frank. Who was this Anne Frank? How do we say that she is great? Children, she is renowned globally. Who was she? Anne Frank was a diarist. Children, a new term, diarist. Who is a diarist? A diarist is a person who writes a diary. So Anne Frank was a diarist. But what made her great? Children, she was a young girl who died at the age of 15. Can you imagine, children? Just at the tender age of 15. And even after that, she has achieved a global fame and name, all because of her diary. She was born on 12 June 1929. Anne Frank was born in Germany, but she was a Jew. Children, if we say Anne Frank was a German-Dutch diarist, we won't be wrong in saying that. Why? Because the family, they moved to Netherlands when she was 4.5 years old, and they lived there until it was captured by Nazis. Nazis, you know, children, the army of Hitler. And we know what Hitler did in Germany. There was a Holocaust, children. What is a Holocaust? Holocaust, it is the mass murder of Jews by German Nazis from, children, please note it down, 1941 to 1945. And this young girl, she was a victim of this Holocaust. When Germany was captured by Nazis, the family moved to Netherlands. They stayed there. They hid there in a building where Annie's father worked. And where did they hid, children? They hid behind the bookcase until Nazis discovered them and they captured them, obviously, and then they shifted them to concentration camps. Annie was shifted to a concentration camp with her sister, where they died. Both of them died within a short period of time by typhus. Typhus, it's a kind of fever. And you know, she has written, when she was in the hiding, she has written everything, whatever happened with her, the way they lived their life in her diary. And that is why the diary is titled as the actual translation. The diary is written in Dutch, and the translation of the title is the hiding. You can say the place where they were hiding. English, when it was translated and published, the title given to the book was The Diary of a Young Girl. The Diary of a Young Girl, children, which was published in 1947. Why young girl? I already told you that young because she was a young girl. She was a very young girl who passed away at the tender age of 15. And now, what was so special about this diary? This diary was given to her on her birthday. It was a gift to her on her 13th birthday. Children, when the diary was gifted to her, she was 13 years old, and the fact is, like, she would long for someone in whom she would confide and with whom she can share everything. Though there were many members in her family, there were people in her family, there were friends, but she never found it feasible to share her feelings, her emotions with them. Why? Why, children? Because she believed that people, they are quite judgmental. They don't listen, and they do not have a patience kind of to keep on listening and being empathetic. So when the diary was given to her as a gift on her 13th birthday, she found a friend in her, in the diary I mean, and she named her diary Kitty. And children, we need to understand this thing, that she confided in her diary other than confiding in people that were around her, other than confiding in her friends and family. Why was it so, children? Why was it so? It was because she, according to her, she says, paper has more patience than people. Children, paper has more patience than people. Can you understand this thing? Do you agree with this thing? Yes, absolutely. Paper has more patience than people. Why, children? Because when we write, when we share our experiences with the diary, with the paper, number one, it won't be judgmental. Number two, it won't get bored. And number three, it will never question. It will never judge you. It will never feel bored. And number three, it will never question. So you can share everything with paper. It's quite patient. Being patient means it will listen. You will keep on writing, you'll keep on sharing, and it will keep on listening, it will keep on absorbing. So that is why this little girl, she found a friend in her diary. And whenever she would write in her diary, she would often write it, Dear Kitty, as if she was addressing a friend. And she would explain everything, she would write everything, her emotions, her experiences in her diary. Now children, the chapter under discussion today is an excerpt from this autobiography. The chapter is titled From the Diary of Annie Frank. From the Diary of Anne Frank. Now why from the diary? Because it is not the complete autobiography. It is just an excerpt. What is an excerpt, children? Extract. And in this extract, what she discusses is about her teacher. Children, teacher. You all have your teachers and you all have your opinions about them. Isn't it, children? She says teachers are quite strange creatures. Teachers are quite strange creatures. Why? Because you never know, you can never judge. You can never even imagine what is going on in their mind. It's very difficult. They are very queer. They are very strange. They are very unpredictable. They are very fickle. Teachers, you cannot predict their mood. You cannot predict what they are going to do. And our excerpt, this excerpt starts when the class of Annie Frank, the children there, they are on their tenterhooks. They are on tenterhooks. Why? Because results are going to be announced and everybody is worried. who has passed, who has been promoted to next class and who has been detained. And she says that teachers are quite queer, they are quite strange, they are unpredictable. And that's why the class was quite nervous. And then she writes about her math teacher. Why math teacher, children? Every teacher has its own aura, his or her own aura, and they impact different children differently. So this maths teacher, Mr. Keesing, he has had a good, or you can say bad as well, an experience with Anne Frank. She says in her diary that she has a habit of talking, she's quite talkative. And when this math teacher goes into the class, he gets annoyed, he gets quite annoyed by her being talkative. And what happens one day, he gives her an essay as homework and he asks her, get it written, the essay, the title is Chatterbox. Anne Frank goes home and she writes the essay, she comes back and she reads it out, she gives it to Mr. Keesing. But then he has given it in the hope that she would now understand that I don't like her talking in the class. That is why I have given her this essay, Chatterbox. But she is incorrigible. Incorrigible, children, a new word, incorrigible, which cannot be corrected. Who cannot be corrected? We call that incorrigible. So he is quite annoyed that this girl, even after writing the essay, I gave her the essay as a punishment, and that she should understand that I get annoyed. She is still talkative, and he goes up to her and he says, okay, now your homework will be an incorrigible chatterbox. Again, she goes home and she comes back to school with the essay. Oh my God, the teacher is again annoyed. See, I gave her this essay, an incorrigible chatterbox, and still she's chatting, chatterbox. So he again gives her one more essay. The third essay that was given as homework to Anne Frank was quack, 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 said Mistress Chatterbox. And children, this time, Anne Frank wanted to write something which would be quite amusing, and therefore she took help from her friend who was good in poetry. And children, when she wrote this essay, she wrote it in verse form, which had a story, a plot, that there were 3 ducklings and they had gone deaf because their father had beat them quite hard. So when she submitted her essay to her teacher, Mr. Keesing, he took it in a right spirit. He was not offended. And in the essay, it was quite clear that she had taken these traits of being talkative from her parents, and therefore she could not help it. She could not help it. She could not stop talking in the class. She could not stop being a chatterbox. Why? Because it was something that she had inherited from her parents, from her mother especially. So her teacher, he understood the fact, he was quite amused, and he took it in the right spirits, and he gave that kind of leniency to Anne Frank that she can talk, and she in return promised to be in control of her talking, like she would not talk much. So children, this chapter gives us a brief overview about Anne Frank's school, especially her maths class and her encounter with her maths teacher. Though she was good in maths, but then she could not help talking, and no teacher would like that when the teacher is teaching and children will keep on talking and distracting others. No teacher would like that, children. You have experienced it, isn't it, in your classrooms when the teacher is teaching, and if you indulge in side talks, you are reprimanded. So same is the case here. She was reprimanded by this teacher. Who was the teacher, children? Maths teacher, Mr. Keesing. But then he gave her essays as punishment, and she wrote essays beautifully, but for the third time she wanted it to be different, and she wrote it in the form of verse. And the teacher, he was quite understanding, and he took it in right spirits. He was not offended, he didn't feel annoyed, and as a result he allowed her, when he understood the fact that she is saying that she has inherited it from her parents, and something that is inherited, you cannot actually control it. So he understands this thing, and he tells her, okay, he now is a bit lenient with her, and in return she promises that she will control her behavior in class. Behavior as in like talking. So children, what do we understand? What does this chapter teach us? What is the message? A general message for each one of us is, 1, paper has more patience than people. Yes, children, people, they tend to be quite impatient, and they are judgmental. They are judgmental. They will judge you on the basis of your acts, on the basis of your emotions, or even like, for example, you saw somebody and you saw him crying on day 1, on day 2, and day 3. Then you will say, oh, he's a crybaby. Isn't it, children? You will label that person as crybaby. So people, it's something natural. So people, they are impatient. They are judgmental. Paper, no, not at all. Paper is quite patient. You can write anything. You can share anything with your diary. And one more thing, that Anne Frank says teachers are unpredictable creatures. But then one thing is very, very important, that is teacher-student relationship. Respect is commanded. It cannot be demanded. You cannot demand respect. So when the teacher is quite understanding, the student also responds in the same way. But it happens only when she writes a third essay and puts forward her point that she has inherited the trait of talking from her mother. So children, for this bond, student-teacher relationship, we need one thing from both sides. 1, respect, and 2nd, it's understanding. Children, I hope I am clear with this chapter. Thank you very much. See you next time.